request them to continue.
Hello, I hope I am audible.
Yes, you're audible.
So I'll just share the screen. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So I welcome all of you to the resume making session conducted by ANC, and I thank the ANC Council for inviting us as speakers. So let us start with a quick introduction. So I am Yash Kulkarni. I'm sorry, just a second. So I think our photographs were swapped in the poster by ANC. So I'm Yash Kulkarni. I have done BTech in mechanical engineering, and currently I'm working as a quant analyst at Goldman Sachs. And Yugam, please.
Hi everyone. Am I audible? Yeah, so I guess I'm audible. So hi, I am Yugam. I am currently a product engineer at Sprinkler, and I'm a BTech graduate in electrical engineering.
Okay, so
yeah,
Yugam.
So let's start with the first slide. So the resume is our first impression in front of the interviewer and the company, and it can also be our last impression if the process is not so good. So as it's our first impression, so just keep in mind that you have to keep like every the most important things in whatever you have done, like they should be highlighted and they should be kept in a decent and organized manner, and and they should be as much clear as possible. So the resume also consolidates your strengths, skills, and experiences, and hence prepares you for the interview process. So just keep in mind to include all the strengths and all the softwares and whatever you have learned in college and whatever you think is relevant for the interview and the company. And because this is all what will be asked in the interview. And most of the companies will ask about your single page resume. The master resume will be asked, like, but not so frequent. So the single page resume should be, as said earlier, formal and decent and easy to read. And it should be targeted according to the profile you are applying for. For example, if you are applying for PM, so then you should be targeting more PORs. And if you are applying for software, then you should be targeting more technical projects. And the interview gets you the job finally, and the resume gets you to the interview. So like whatever you do in interview, that will matter the most, but the resume is what that will get you to the interview, and that will be asked in the interview, apart from the basic coding questions and what constitutes the interview process of that particular company. So like yeah, that's it.
Okay, so this is how a particular, like a typical resume looks like. You must be already aware of what subheadings are like compulsory as a part of a resume. So I have listed all of them down, and here is a screenshot of my resume, which I had submitted for Goldman Sachs. So basically, a lot of juniors have asked me this question about choosing the format. So they ask me like which format is best for them and which format is good and which format is bad. So my answer to this question is simple. All the formats are equal, just that you must choose the format according to the amount of content that you have. So for example, if you have like lesser number of like internships and a smaller content, you can go ahead with the resume on the left. While if you have like more content, you can go with the resume on the right. So the format does not matter. All the formats are decent, and you can use any of them depending on the amount. Yes, Yugam.
Okay, so intro and education. So this is like the first header of your resume. So this is what the interview will read at first. So like you can add your GitHub and Codeforces and Kaggle profile if you have maintained that well. And most like GitHub profile is like almost most frequent you will see in resumes, because you must have done some open source projects or must done an internship, and your projects should be reflected there. And also like if you have done some minor or you are doing some minor, so that is also a good addition, as it like makes you show your interest to the company, like what are the other fields you are interested in. And also just include all the major education that you have completed and all the certificates. And also this is the first header, so be sure to include every information that you can, like Kaggle, GitHub, Code Forces on the header only.
Yes. So next comes the scholastic achievements and internships. So like basically my point of view is that you should include the recent and the unique achievements like at the top, and the other achievements should be mentioned like below. Why I say like this, because I have seen many resumes in which the JE rank is mentioned at the top. So basically you are competing with your like friends from IITK, so all have good ranks in like JE mains and advanced. So if you don't have like a very good rank in JE mains and advanced, I would suggest to not write them on your resume, because it does not make you stand out. And if you are placing it at the top, it is just wasting space of your resume. So also like your achievements should only include the academic proficiencies and not extracurricular achievements. That has a separate space in the resume. Also, you can like on the right, you can see that the experiences or the internship experience has been characterized into objective, strategy, and result. So this helps the reader to the like basically the interviewer or the person who is going to shortlist the resume to read through the resume very easily. And you should like highlight the important points so that he does not have a lot of time. Shortlisting happens in a very short amount of time. So you should like basically highlight the important words, and like characterizing the experiences is good, but it's not necessary. Like I have not done it. Also, you don't need to put full stops at the end of sentences or the points, but if you are putting them, it should be uniform all over. So I had put full stops, as you can see. And also here I have attached like the achievement section of one of my senior. So he had sorted the achievements in the order of merit and according to the relevance of the profile he was applying for. So that is very important. For example, if you are applying for a data science role, then you can place some data science achievement at the top, and you can change that for different resumes that you make. And also like if you have participated in any hackathons, olympiads, or like some coding contest like the Google Kickstart and Code Jam, you can always place them in the achievements even if you have not performed that well, because that makes you stand out. And yes, that's all. You can take this one.
Yeah. Can you change the slide? Okay, so let's go to projects.
This
So
is the ninth.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, the projects are like the most important part of your resume. The major part of your interview, the resume part, will be based on the projects. You will be discussing the projects with the interviewer, and he will be cross questioning you based on that. So make sure to make the every project like equally number of points. So like every project should look the same. Like I have 4 points in the first project but 3 points in second project, because the first project was a big one, and each point should cover as much part of your resume as possible. So like the ideal is 80%. So if one line is less than 80%, so it makes your resume seem empty. So that is like considered a bad practice. So make sure to frame your line such that it covers at least 80% of the line. And you should use action verbs that like is a clear indication of how you have worked on your resume. And make sure to highlight like necessary softwares and what are the approaches you used and what was the results you got. And also numbers are game changers. Like you should at the end try to include what are the results in form of numerics. So that gives a clear picture of like what was the project, like what was the result of the project. And also you should frame your projects in such a way like the first point is objective, the second point is approach, and the third or fourth point should be result. You can like add 1 or 2 lines up and down, but the general approach for framing a project should be like that only. And also the most important part is you should not lie on your resume. But yeah, we all know that mm, we all need to fill our resume with some stuff also. So but अगर जब भी अगर कुछ कर रहे हो जो तुमने नहीं किया इतना अच्छे से, जितना कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है, and if you feel like that's a good project for making your resume shortlist, so you should include that and make sure that you learn whatever you have filled on your resume by core, and you should be able to present that during interview. The interviewer should not get like doubts on like what you have written is a lie on your resume. That what you all have written, you should be absolutely clear with all the concepts and absolutely clear with the approach, strategy, result of the project.
Yes, but I need to add one more point here. So like I have heard from seniors that you need to be 100% confident of the projects or the things which you are writing on your resume. But I have a slightly different opinion. So if you have a project which you feel is important from the perspective of the profile you are applying for, and you are not 100% sure about it, then I encourage you to write it down at least for now in one of the resumes, so that this is because like it helps you it increases the chances of you getting shortlisted for that profile, and getting rejected in the resume like in the interview process is always better than getting rejected before the interview. So I feel like, and there is always a chance that the interviewer may not ask you about the project which you are not 100% sure about. Also you have plenty of time like till your interviews. I think your interview should start on 1 December. So till that time, you can like learn more things about your project, which you are not clear of right now. So yes, that's a point of view. But you like I would encourage you to think about like if you'll like get enough time to like look into your resume like in the 7th semester, and accordingly put your projects.
Also, I'd like to add few more points. So the project ordering should be based on the timeline what you have done, not on the base of like what you think is most important. So the latest project should be listed first and then according to the timeline. And also another point is that if you are using like a same software for multiple projects, like I have used LSTMs in multiple projects, so you should highlight it in only one project only. Don't highlight same word in many different projects. It creates confusion.
Yes. Okay, so the next comes the relevant coursework and the technical skills. So in the coursework, I would suggest you to keep the subjects which are more important for that particular profile at the top. For example, I was applying for quant, and data structures and algorithms and prop stats are the two most important subjects for that. So I had placed them at the top. But for my format of the resume, like I had like plenty of space for putting as many courses as I want. So like I had filled in all the courses. But if you don't have a sufficient place, then you should only fill in the courses which are important from the perspective of the profile you are applying for. And like these are just examples, like for finance, financial econometrics, and money and banking, maybe some important courses. And also, like if you have not done some courses at IIT Kanpur, but you have done them online, then you can, and you're confident about them, so you can go ahead and write them down in your resume by adding a star mark or something. Like because say for example, many people do the Andrew NG's machine learning course from Coursera. So I encourage you to put it into your resume, because it adds like basically the interviewer at least knows that you have some idea about machine learning.
Yeah, so now the PORs and extracurriculars. So like PORs are like icing over the cake in non-core roles, but has more weight in consulting product roles. So if you are applying for software jobs, so the PORs will be a matter of discussion, but not like a complete 20 or 30-minute discussion. They will be asked in HR rounds, preferably. So try to like organize your PORs in a tabled manner, and they should also be in chronological order if possible. And if you have a like a level 1 POR or a level 2 POR, so that should be listed first, of course, and then all the level 3 PORs and level 2 PORs. And also the good practice is to divide extracurriculars into subtopics like social, sports, managerial, etc. So that is like that also depends on the role you are applying on. if you are applying for a consulting role, then that is a pretty important task to do. But if you are applying for software roles, so like you can go ahead with a normal bullet form. And also extracurricular should be recent and try to cover each of them in a single line. So don't make extra 1 point of 2 or 3 lines, and try to include as many extracurriculars as possible by including all of them in a single line.
Okay, so here are some words of wisdom. I would encourage you to like check your resumes from seniors, ask them to review your resumes. And like this is according to my experience, like each senior will point some new mistake or suggest some changes. So you should ask at least 5 seniors according to me. And also like you can break or join subheadings as you wish according to the content you have. So say like I had included a separate subheading for competitive programming because that was a point I wanted to highlight from my resume. So like basically competitive programming can be covered as a part of extracurricular activities, but I had put it as a separate subheading. Also, you need to check for like grammatical errors. Like there are softwares which can check for grammatical errors. So like a big mistake on your resume, like it will not look like that big, but it does not sound professional or it does not look professional to the interviewer. So I would like ask you to avoid grammatical errors and also spelling mistakes. And as Yugam had said, you should check the spacing and the line coverage. At least 80% of all of the lines on the resume should be filled, so it looks better. There are lesser number of white spaces and so on. And I have attached like a link to a drive, so you can check that for more resumes once this PPT is sent to you over mail. So yes, that's all from our side. Now we are open for questions.
Yeah, so somebody is asking about latex codes. So yeah, we can send it to ANC and they can like share with you. Also, if you want a latex code of a template resume, you can type Prab Simrandeep Singh IITK and you will get a latex code on Google. I guess this is the one. Yes, so somebody is asking about dates. So yeah, dates are a pretty important thing to add to the project as it gives the idea that how old the project is and how much time you have spent in a project. So the interviewer might ask that why did you dedicate 3 or 4 months to a project, and you should be able to give a definite answer. Okay, Anshul, I don't get what question papers are you asking?
Like the coding question, like you said, na, you are very proficient. So how to make good use of that, like while you're doing it. So,
Okay, so you are asking about coding, right? Yeah, the coding. Okay, so let me tell. For coding, you can try Lead Code or Code Forces. Like you don't have to like find question papers of coding specifically. So lead code is sufficient.
Thank you. That was very informative.
Or and yeah, someone is asking about chronological order or the confidence. So if you should prefer to put them in chronological order, but if you think that a project is like a very relevant project for the profile, so you might include it at the top, because the usually the first or second project is the one which is which will be based which will be a topic of your interview, and that will continue for like 20 to 30 minutes. So if you think that a project is very relevant, so you can put it on top. And also the interview is like driven by you. The both the interviewer and the interviewee participate in the process of the interview. So like you, for interview, you have to drive the interview yourself. If the interviewer asks about your introduction, and you should include the project, the relevant project which you think is important in the introduction itself, so that the further questions which the interviewer will ask should be based on that project only. Font color can be any, like just make your resume look good. But if you are designing a simple resume, then black is like suggested. Recording will be shared by the ANC. Okay, so placements like they start on 1 December at 12 a.m. sharp. So if you are shortlisted in a day one company, so your interview will start at 12 a.m. or till 12:30 a.m. it will start. And like how my placement went was I was shortlisted in Sprinkler. So that was my first interview only. So it started at 12 a.m. and each round lasted about 1 hour to 1.5 hours. My second and third round went were pretty long. They were 1.5 hours each, and you get 10 to 15 minutes gap between each round. So till 6:30 a.m. I was free with all the like technical rounds and one HR round. So like you don't have much time to think about and what to do. Like if you are shortlisted for further rounds, that then you might prepare, and you should prepare yourself for the next round only, because it's in 10 minutes. And the placement process is pretty hectic. So if you are if you by chance, if you don't get a placement in day one, so then you should optimize your schedule to get enough sleep for further days and further rounds, because the first round the first phase will last from 12 to 8, and then the second phase of day one will start from 12 p.m. only. So like you get very less hours to sleep. So you must plan yourself for the placement, and how your must plan your sleep for that, because sleep is pretty important. Okay, so internship or projects. If one doesn't have any, I would suggest them to do like self projects to fill their resume. Like you should have some topic to talk about with the interviewer. And so I suggest them, if someone is not having any internship or mentor projects, to go for self projects. And self projects can be found on Kaggle, or if you're aiming for machine learning, or you can do some basic React projects for web development.
আমি জানতাম না 12টা থেকে 8টা তারপর আবার 12টা এই ব্যাপারটা
Yes, if you think your code forces, if you think you can like impress the interviewer with your code forces handle, you can also like share your screen and show the questions which you have solved, and how you approach the question. You can do anything. Like you can also present software the project which you have done, if it's a web development project. And if it's a front end project, you can also present it to the interviewer, and show the interviewer and go through the whole code base which you have developed, and show him basically how you have approached the problem, and what problems did you face during creating that website. So yeah, you should mention your code forces rating if you think it's decent enough. Okay, so one line is for because like you should include as many points as possible. The brief giving a point, two line is basically you are briefing that point. That is the one thing that you should do in the interview. One line should also consider, one line should only constitute the summary of what, like if you are giving objective, if you are describing the objective of your project. So giving two lines is giving two lines means that you are describing the objective pretty much briefly, but that is a thing which you should do in interview. So one line should be just the summary of the objective, and the further explanation you should be given by you to in the interview. Yes, you can mention any intern you like, but prefer if you have like in SD or data science interviews, prefer to talk about softwares. You can mention intern in the resume, but prefer to talk about software projects because that is what the interview is looking for. No obligation. It's completely on you whether to share your screen for the project or not. If you think you can, if the project is very relevant to a profile, suppose they are looking for a backend developer and you have some projects in Node.js. So then the project sharing is pretty relevant as it gives interviewer the idea of what softwares, what you have used and how you approach the backend problems, optimization problems. While like there is no obligation, like it's not compulsory for you to share your projects. Yes, can you take further questions? I need to.
Yes. Yes, you can mention. Someone is asking about Python and HTML, so you can surely mention them. But make sure that before the interview, you just look at it, like look at the basics of it once. Maybe a day of revision or so will help you. And should I mention it in the resume? I mostly use C++. But you can mention it because basically you in your final job profile, Python may be required. And if you don't mention it in your resume, it can be possible that the interviewer thinks that you are completely unaware of Python. You can tell him that I have worked on Python, but it was a year ago. So don't ask me questions or something. So you should be open in your like interviews. And is PR important for software roles? No, it's not important. It's only important for filling space in your resume. So I have given many like SD and quant interviews till now, but none of them, none of the interviewers have asked me about PRs. Also, like someone was asking about marketing intern for SD profiles. So you can always mention that intern as Yugam said, but I would prefer it to mention it in the extracurricular section. So that can basically fill some space in your resume as well and show that you have worked on some intern or some professional experience in the past. Yes, so I think that's all. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay, what is the best way to address the situation when interviewer asks something you don't? You can clearly tell him that I am not aware about that. If you say that I know that thing, and if you are lying at that moment, the interviewer will know it easily because you will have an offline interview, I think so. And it's always better to say that I don't know instead of when you don't know a particular thing. So it's like not bad at all. So I did not have knowledge of CSE fundamentals because I was from mechanical engineering. So if they ask me some things which are specific to computer science, I used to say that I'm not aware, or like my coursework did not include that particular thing. Or if you have some knowledge, then you can try answering that question. If it is logical, you obviously should give it a try and not say that I don't know it entirely.
Uh,
Yugam, how do we cope with the stress during placement tests and interviews?
Yeah. So you should be firstly mentally prepared that the process you will be going through is like pretty hectic. So, and also plan your sleeps according to that. I would recommend on day 0 on 31st December like last day of November, 30th November, to get enough sleep as possible. Like you should sleep for 10 to 11 hours, as like you might be sleep deprived for next couple of days. So like get enough sleep and give your best in the interview. And like if a particular interview goes wrong, so don't matter about it much. Just like have a copy beside you and note down what were the points and what were like where did you lag based on based on the interview. You should also ask the interviewer what were the like how did you perform, and like what were the points where you were lacking. And to handle stress, I would like suggest to talking with your friends as much as possible, because in college all that you have is friends, so they'll like give you sympathy and also give you like suggestions how you can perform better in further interviews. Yes, the previous year PPT did help for session. Like we took inspiration from the previous year PPT to prepare this PPT. So the walk-in interviews will start from I guess day two itself. Ours started from day 2. The day 2 phase 2 is what they like what normally goes, but in our case many people were placed in day 1 itself, so the walk-in started in day 2 phase 1 only. Okay, so for standard tech interview is like the first round will be DSA round. So the interview will ask typically 3 to 4 questions of DSA, one easy, and depending on the company, if it's a day 1 company, then 1 medium and 2 hard, or if it's a day 2 day 3 company, so then they'll ask 2 medium and a hard question. And the second round, my second round was completely resume based. The interviewer basically went through whole of my resume and discussed each and every project in detail. So the second round lasted pretty long because he went through every point of the resume. And the third round was overall. The interviewer checked my basic quant and probability skills, and also coding, and also resume. So the third round was overall round, which checked my like resume, also DSA skills and basic probability and permutation skills. The fourth round is the HR round. So that's like 30 to 40 minutes round, where you can find HR questions on the SPO website.
Can you suggest some resources for machine learning?
Yeah, machine learning, you can explore Kaggle. Kaggle has a great code base for various machine learning projects. And also like you can also explore medium.com. They have some great articles on machine learning and machine learning concepts.
Okay, so someone is asking about lead code hard questions in analytics and quant interviews. So at least for me in my quant interview, there were no coding questions. I had mentioned competitive programming in my resume. So that was the reason they were asking me some coding questions. And like I used to tell them in the introduction that I like problem solving and competitive programming. But if you don't say anything like that, they will not ask you any coding questions at all. But you should at least be prepared for medium level lead code coding questions. Hard level will not be asked in analytics and quant interviews. Okay, the questions in HD rounds are basically like more difficult than the coding questions basically. And in quant interviews, as I said, they ask relatively simple coding questions or no coding questions at all. In the test, it is like for at least for GS, it is a mix of mathematics or quant knowledge as well as coding questions. So for the test, you should be prepared for the like medium and hard level lead code questions as well. So someone is asking about the SPO's rule of applying in max 50 companies for first 3 days. No, it does not create a problem at all. So for me and like at least for my friends, it was not a problem. So I think it will not be a problem for you as well. And how do we manage between semester and preparations? So like it is going to be hectic, but if you go with the flow, everyone is going to do the same thing. So like it happens like naturally. You don't need to stress about that. I'm not aware about the shortlist for HFTs. Maybe Yugam can answer this question.
I too didn't apply for HFTs, only applied for software roles. But like I have a basic idea. So the online test is a coding one only. They test your competitive programming skills, and plus they have objective type questions on probability. And yeah, they like HFT interviews also will also happen on day one only. So most of the HFTs will take their interviews on day one, phase one. So like you will get a call if you do well on test and they think your resume is good enough for their company. Oh, so does having a back in a course affect our interview? So if you have cleared the backlog, so that should be like that should be clear in your resume that you should do you must have mentioned that course, or if you have passed that course. Or so if the interviewer does have your the grade sheet of your of the grade sheet with him, so he might ask about that backlog, and you should have a definite answer for that, like why did you have a bag, and like what were the problems you were facing then. So try to prepare that, and this is a question that's usually asked in HR rounds, so you should prepare this question well. And also if you have like a low CPI, so that you should also prepare an answer, a definite answer for, because HRs usually tend to ask the question about your CPI if your CPI is like below 7. Yeah, the questions will be like repeating one. You might also find that you gave a test like yesterday and the same question came today itself in a different company's test. So yeah, the question in test do repeat. My CPI was 7.5.
Mine was 9.1. So for probability statistics, for analytics, you can prepare like the standard course MSO 201, I think so. Or there is an IME course as well, IME 602 course, like applied probability and statistics something. So the course content of that you can prepare for probability and statistics. And also for puzzles, you can go ahead with the 50 challenging problems in probability and the brain stiller problems available.
Also, you can try interview bit puzzles as well. They're also
Yes.
decent enough. No, usually no. the time constraint, they don't put a time constraint on the questions. It just matters how many test cases you have cleared. If you have passed all the cases, then that's good enough. If even if you have taken complete 3 hours of time in a test.
I think the PropStat course at IIT Kanpur is like sufficient, but I have not referred to any material apart from that.
Okay, so for coding, I would like to suggest you go through the interview bit first and complete all the topics that are given there. And so the main topics that they ask in interview are based on data structures. So they might ask you a tree question or a graph question. So going through the whole interview bit is sufficient enough for completely like giving you an idea of what topics will be asked in the interview. And if you have like ample time after that, you should try lead code for the same topics that you have done on interview bit. Okay, so the question it depends on test. So if you consider a typical HFT test, they put all hard questions on their test. So solving like 70 to 80% question is sufficient for them. But if you are applying for a software company, that's day one, then you should try to solve all the questions. Yes, puzzles are asked in SD and data science role too.
Okay, so for the priority order like of the platforms, I guess you should go ahead with the standard problems right now. Like for example, interview bit and some standard problems on lead code. And if you are already done with them, then you can try some non-standard problems on lead code and some other sites or Geeks for Geeks, for example.
Yeah, like
So given that, yes, please.
graph questions, like you should be familiar with all the algorithms like Dijkstra's algorithm and basic coding problems like KMP and Cardania's algorithm. You should there's a great resource on SPO website for coding question. You can go through that and it has all the like important topics and questions that may be asked in an interview. So OS and DBMS, if you are from computer science, then the interviewer might ask about that because he must know that you should have done these courses. But if you're not from computer science background, so then you can simply tell that like I have not done these courses, and you should direct that interview towards competitive coding only. And OS DBMS questions are like DBMS questions are asked in coding tests, but not OS questions. OS questions are asked for companies like Cisco, where they are looking for a core software engineer, like a compiler based profile. So if you are applying for that profile, then you must be familiar with OS also. Oracle asks much DBMS questions. So if you are applying for Oracle, so you must be familiar with complete DBMS concepts. System design, system design, some companies do ask, but most of the companies do not. Like almost 90% of your test will be based on competitive programming only. And DBMS will be asked in like 50% tests, 50 to 60% tests. But OS and system design, they'll be asked in like rarely 10% of your tests. No. Networking, no, not asked. Very rarely. Okay, so to simulate an actual test, like you should appear in contests, coding contests, on Code Forces, Code Chef, and Lead Code. And like Lead Code has bi-weekly contests and weekly contests, and also a daily problem. So to simulate the test environment, you should appear in that and give the coding contest seriously. Also, programming club must be like holding a contest series for placements. So you should also appear on in that.
So you can make a group of some friends and give lead code contests virtually and maybe compare your scores or something.
Yes, lead code tests will be similar to your actual tests,
Hmm.
as they are based on standard questions. So the bi-weekly and the monthly contest of lead code, they are a pretty good simulation of your actual test.
But the problems can be tougher as well, and lead code first problems will not be asked.
No, you should you can contact your seniors, your the IITK seniors for asking about the interview process, but the topic should not go beyond that, like what questions will be asked in the interview. They'll give you a pretty good idea about how you should prepare for the interview.
So it is better that you connect with seniors who have already cleared the interviews of that company last year rather than approaching employees. And you don't know which employees are going to take your interview. So I don't think there is any point in approaching employees.
Only approach IITK seniors only, and any other
Mm.
senior you know. Okay, so hard questions, they are basically based on graphs and dynamic programming. So the dynamic programming is a topic that you should prepare pretty well for software roles, because every coding round will and every test will surely have a dynamic programming question. And also try preparing graphs, because they graphs usually appear in like day one software test, but the interviewer might ask about basic graph questions like how to traverse a graph and like basic Dijkstra's or algorithm and the some listed algorithms which you can find on every website.
But hard questions can be framed on any topic. So you should be prepared for like all the topics.
Yeah, even array can have hard questions. Okay, so software syllabus, as in there is like no listed syllabus, but like uh, as previously said, you can go through interview bit and see each topic there and try learning every topic there. So that's pretty much the whole syllabus covered for your interview. Yes, DBMS might be asked. DBMS might be asked, but not OS. OS only if you are from a CS background.
It's asked in test as well. So it's for both test and interviews. But for quant interviews, that is the thing which is only asked. So for that, you need to prepare very well.
like DSA MCQ problems. So I didn't specifically prepare DSA MCQ problems. I just focused on clearing my concepts as much as possible. So the MCQ problems are just a short simulation of the big coding question that you get in interview. So they might put a bug in a code and ask you to find it, or they might ask you the result of the code. So it's not that like you should specifically prepare for DSA MCQ questions. Are coding test language specific? Uh, like on there are three main languages which the coding platforms prefer. They are C++, Python, and Java. So if you are proficient in any one of them, that should be sufficient.
There are like only one or two tests which are coding specific, like language specific. I remember in Maverick, I guess it was only Python
Yeah,
allowed.
yeah.
And SQL questions are also asked in like in very less coding in very less like companies. But Jumio had asked SQL questions, if I remember well.
Yeah, and also if you are applying for a Python developer, then you must be known
Mhm.
Python. Aptitude problems. Yeah.
Not to like cat extent, but you should be able to solve them quickly. Like you should have some practice of that.
So where to prepare for aptitude test? So in my case, I had a CAT series which I took subscription for, the Time CAT series. So like that was sufficient for me to prepare for the general aptitude which they ask. But the aptitude problems in tests are like not so difficult, and you should get like enough practices from the tests only. Also, if any of your friend is like preparing for CAT, you might ask him for question paper and do practice from that. That's a pretty good resource. Like Goldman Sachs asks aptitude questions, and aptitude questions are also asked in multiple interviews also.
The analytics role companies always ask for aptitude questions only, but some HD companies can also ask.
So like it's not specific, but on an average, you should have around like 15 aptitude questions, and the you should like give 1 to 1.5 minute per question. That's the standard time which you should devote for one question. Yeah, the questions can be asked in test also. Okay, so in ML interview, like they'll go through the basic ML models and basic machine learning questions. So you Google machine learning interview questions, and then you'll get some pretty good resources on preparing ML questions. Like they first ask basic questions like supervised, unsupervised learning, and then they might take a model and ask you how it works. Suppose they take KNN model, then they might ask how do you select K, what are the nearest neighbors, and they might go like full deep in the model, and also ask you about the optimization approaches, like what error you chose, like what is categorical cross entropy loss. That's what error I use in my project. So the ML interview will be based on your resume only, like mostly on your resume, which models you have worked on and what problems you have solved.
So for me, it was like discussing with my friends. So I used to discuss some like the problem which I have learned recently with my friends. So it helps you to remember it for a longer amount of time. And for revising, you again sit in the same group and then just discuss over the like the algorithms used in all the coding questions which are important. So you can star mark some questions and keep for reviewing.
Yeah, for me too, like whenever I practice the question and I thought that I took longer time than like I should give, and also my approach is not good enough and not optimized enough. So I used to start that question and revisit that question in a week. And also for complete revision, like just a day before interview. So I took interview bit and saw each question once and practiced that questions which I have started before. Okay, so for solving interview bit, I would like you to like solve one question per bucket. And usually the last question from every bucket is like a complete collection of all the problems which you will solve from the first 4 questions of the bucket. So like for for going through interview bit quickly, you should explore the last 2 questions of every bucket. That should be good enough.
There are many repetitive questions on interview bits, so like the strategy which you suggested is quite good.
Since there are no more questions, I think we can close the session.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for joining.
So like, yeah, there's one another question for DBMS. So yeah, it can depend on company. They might ask no SQL, or if they are looking for a Mongo developer, so they might go for MongoDB also. But SQL, preparing just one SQL framework is enough. So most of your tests will be based on like solving that SQL question, no matter which language you use. Yeah, for screening test only. Yeah, the ANC Council will share the slides.
Yeah, slides will be shared today itself.
Great. So
Okay,
thank you.
thanks a lot, all of you.
Thank you, speakers, for such a wonderful session.
Thanks a lot. Like if anyone has more questions, you can feel free to DM both of us.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
bye. Good luck everyone for your placements.